what would be your key indicator lifts for the bench press then?
I think for different people that varies a lot, but I mean I think that's one where you have to find it, and there's so many exercises you just need to, like for me, I like incline bench, I like shoulder pressing, I like dumbbell pressing, I like dumbbell bench.
That's a funny point that you brought up, because you
can't do them all.
There's so many movements where with squat and pulls, it's I'm not going to say it's limited, but you don't have, it's like you can squat, you can good morning, you can pull. There's what the fuck else are you going to do?
I think with the squatting, I mean, a lot of it comes down to your skill level, which comes from practicing the same things like enough. But I think benching, the technique for benching, I don't think is as complicated, and I think the trick is getting bigger and more jacked. You need bigger arms and chest and shoulders. You can execute better technique, but that's not going to get you a 500 or 600 pound bench.
True.
Only by gaining muscle. That's kind of where I look at it, as like it's a lot like bodybuilding. I mean,
yes. The other thing,
and just as a personal thing, why would you want to bench a lot and not look like it either? So.
Well, aside from that, you make a good point, because another critical factor I think in benching big and benching well is to be able to stay tight.
Yeah.
But you can't flex bone. You know what I'm saying? You can't flex skin, and you can't flex fat. So the only way you can get tight is to have muscles to actually make tight. And while you could be teaching, or I could be, or any of us could be teaching somebody how to bench press and how to pack their shoulders and get everything tight, how to tighten their lats, if they don't have any fucking lats, what are they going to get tight?
Right.
Their triceps. Yeah. They got to build the shit up, and then it starts. So it is. You're 100% correct. It's bodybuilding repetition type of work, which is, it's odd because it's so vastly different than the squat and deadlift that it's like higher rep protocols work better. And where the squat and pulls, it's like singles, triples, maybe fives if you have your inhaler that day.
Well, it goes to the point, if we say like technique is paramount, well, technique divides into sort of like, the concept of doing it. Like if I give you an empty bar, does your technique look right? But now when we put more and more and more weight on, what causes you to fail to execute the technique? Well, that would be a lack of strength. So if you can't stay tight because your lats don't have the strength to stay tight once the weight gets up to a certain point, well, now your technique fails because you're weak. And that's where I think with the bench, once you can execute the technique properly, you just need to get stronger. Mm-hmm. With the squat, there's a lot of that too, but there's also just a lack of execution of, you can give somebody an empty bar or like, 1 or 2 plates if they're kind of a bigger guy, and it can still be a pretty ugly squat, and you put a lot of work in with poor form and you don't get quite as much back on the return.
I've also found with the squat, I haven't found this with the deadlift, but with the squat, if you take somebody's beginner, intermediate, and their form is, just say it's a clusterfuck, and you work with them for a half hour, they could hit a 50, 60, 70 pound PR sometimes. You can't do that on the bench. You certainly can't do it on the deadlift. Well, maybe on the deadlift if it's really bad, but it's like the squat is like the king of, I can be the greatest coach in the world.
Well, going back to the point with the deadlift and back to like talking about, I think we're talking about, like mental cues. Well, sometimes if you have like just with the deadlift, especially if somebody believes they can lift the weight and they don't know what weight's on the bar, a lot of times they hit some big PRs. So I've seen this with like some of the seminars who just keep adding weight, and all of a sudden they don't even know what they're lifting, and you're putting it on so they know that that they can lift it, so they think they can lift it, and sure, so it's just so
that's how you got that over 8 pull. He misloaded that shit on you.
Yeah, right. I think an important part with the leading indicators on all the lifts is knowing your weaknesses, because like with bench press, it just depends where you're weak, because so I'm generally strong off my chest, especially relatively so since I tore my tricep. So, a buffalo bar press, cambered bar press is not going to be a good leading indicator for me, whereas a board press will be, because it's my lockout that's a problem, whereas some people it's the opposite. And same with, when I got my squat better doing a lot of front squats and high bar squats because my quads were a weak point. My posterior chain was relatively strong. But other people may have the opposite. So I think that's kind of important when you find a leading indicator lift.
Yeah, and weaknesses are, you got to address the weaknesses. There's no doubt about that. The trick, I think, is you you can't do that at the expense of your strengths.
Yeah.
You know, there's like two main schools of thought when it comes to powerlifting, and one is, you know, only work your strengths, you know, and the other one is you got to pound your weaknesses, or the answer is kind of in the middle, because if you stop training your strength, good luck come meet day.
Right.
You know, it's kind of, I mean, in business, let's say you're in business, you know, if we were having a consulting session on business and I said, Dan, look, man, here's what you got to do. Everything that you're really good at, fucking stop doing.
Yeah.
You know, so you're taking your competitive advantages and just throwing it out the window. It's just, the balance is in there. But I do think that, as you said, people don't look hard enough. You see that pendulum swing every year or two, and it's really, really weird if you're watching what people are writing about and so forth. It's like, okay, now it's all about working the strengths, and here we go, it's all about working the weaknesses, and it's just like nothing's fun, nothing's new.
How about doing both?
Exactly. But you know, you start speaking and educating and talking right down that middle, you're almost ignored. Right. You know, because people don't want to hear that.
Well, people want to hear the extremes. And that goes for politics and everything else.
What's the like fancy exercise, you know?
Yes.
That's going to be the silver bullet.
Yes. They don't want to hear the truth.
Right.